thank you so much for the presentation. And I truly believe that the success of a digital transformation depends on how secure can you make it and the culture that supports it. So I present myself earlier. I am Gómez Sánchez from Lima, Peru. I designed an AppSec program, and I am leading the AppSec program in one of the biggest banks of Latin America, the biggest bank of Peru. And let me tell you that being here is a dream for me, and I hope that you enjoy this presentation. And please ask me whatever you want, whenever you want. But who really I am, I always present myself because I think that the person is always important. For example, when we deploy the AppSec program in the bank, we need to make a stronger relationship with the development. And you only can make this generating empathy. So, who am I? I am the son of two angels. My dad in heaven, my mom, my angel in earth. I am the big brother of three crazy guys, and they are my best friends. I am married with the most beautiful woman in earth. I am the dad of two beautiful childs. I have one dog and my king, the king of the house. I am very, very happy, and they always motivate me to be a better person, and in consequence, a better professional. I love to train Aikido. My wife told me, I hope you tell all the people that you are not training Aikido right now, but I love to train Aikido. I am a supporter of Alianza Lima, the biggest club of Peru. And as I told you before, I am from Lima, Peru, and this is my birthplace in earth, like Nico. But before starting my presentation, I want to ask you something. Where is the security? What do you think? When we talk about security, sometimes we think the security is in the helmet and in the security belt. But so one of you can answer me this question? Where is the security? If we talk about security, where do you think is the security?
All of these pictures?
Yes, and another answer? Hi, how are you?
The person.
The person, yes. And another answer? Does someone think that the security is in the helmet in the security belt?
Yeah.
Yes. And this is a very important picture because when I talk about security in products, we talk that security must be an intrinsic value of every product. Sometimes our developers or our product owner thinks that the security is like a helmet or like a security belt. But there are elements of security. When we talk about security in digital products, we talk about that all the products need to have the security. For example, if you buy a car or a motorcycle, you need that all the elements in the car and in the motorcycle has the adequate security. So, when we start this roadmap, what was the context? We started in the digital transformation process, and did you know that almost 96% of companies that starts its digital transformation process only fails? And this often happens because they not really consider cybersecurity or a culture that supports it. So, in digital transformation, this process seems to try to transform. Hi, how are you? Transform a company, making this more efficient and effective, supporting in the digital process. So, what was our context? Where are we going with this digital transformation? We were a bank that developed software, just a little, in using waterfall methodologies. But when we start to going in this digital transformation process, we need to adopt agile and disruptive technologies. For example, in this moment, cloud, or in that moment, cloud, and right now we are starting to use blockchain, for example. We needed to make an DevOps adoption we need to decrease our lead time from 6 to 9 or 9 months to 2 weeks. That was very ambitious. And we need to increase our number of applications in Agile from 1 to 200. And we need to multiply our number of deployments to production by 100. And all of this context has, maybe led us with a lot of questions. And the truth is that we really didn't know where we are. So the first question is where are we? The second, what do we have? What do we have to make this digital transformation secure? What do we need? Do we have all that we need? We need more person, we need more tools, we need another methodologies. Where are we going? We didn't know where are we going. And how are we going to the place that we really need to stay? So, how can we make it secure? Like I told you before, when you talk about a digital transformation, one of the necessary things is to make it secure. But if I ask you one question, how can we make secure a digital transformation process? Do you think in something? I help you? We need an AppSec program because we need to develop a lot of applications. But if we don't have an AppSec program, all of those applications will go to production without security. But how to start? How do we get started? The first thing is to identify what framework can we use. So at first we look at BSIM and then compares with with SAMM, and we decide to use SAMM because SAMM is descriptive instead of prescriptive. And SAMM has a lot of members and a big community that supports of the users. So what do we really need? We need SAMM. This is the first question, or the first answer, sorry. And maybe we can take a quickly look about the standard. We have 5 business units, and every business unit have 3 security practices, like in governance. In governance, we have strategy metrics, policy and compliance, and education and guidance. And every security practice has 2 streams, stream A and stream B. And every stream, for example, every stream has a specific objective. For example, if we talk about a strategy and metric, one objective is create and promote, and the other one is measure and improve, right? And every objective has 3 different activities in which every activity has more sophisticated way to comply by. For example, in create and promote, we have a first activity related to the maturity level 1, the second activity related to maturity level 2, and the third activity related to maturity level 3. And after this make assessment, how do we look? The truth is that reality wasn't beautiful. I think it was very ugly. So we had a security information program, as you can see in the images. We don't have an AppSec program. We have a software development process, but we didn't have all the necessary security practices. Yes, I take this picture of your LinkedIn. You know why? because sometimes in my company, some leaders and some friends told me, secure software development is equal to an AppSec program, but not necessarily. There are differences. And an AppSec program is different to a cybersecurity program. So I took this picture to present in my company to explain the differences. Yeah. And I tried to take this picture here to show you how every layer works. And when we use, when we talk about secure software development lifecycle, we had some security practices. For example, we have in implementation peer code review, but was a little of security. We have functional and non-functional testing. We had very limited security testing. We didn't have, for example, security verification or security requirements verification. And we have unethical hacking. We had unethical hacking. And in deployment to production, we had an ad hoc security final review that consists in a risk assessment, but an ad hoc risk assessment. And in operations, we had ad hoc operations security reviews. So if you see the image on your right, you can see that our security maturity was very, very low. We had a 0.13 in our application security program. And what does it mean to have this level of maturity? You know, when you're a company, you need to prioritize. And you can only prioritize focusing on risk. Every company, or maybe the goal of cybersecurity is always preventing risk. And if you have some risk, mitigate them. So what did we do? We identify a high-level security risk. And for example, in governance, we have an absence of a cybersecurity governance in the software development lifecycle. But we have 3 different alert zones. In strategic and metrics, policy and compliance, education and guidance, we have a critical risk. Why? Because it didn't have nothing. So in this way, we did this work to all the business functions. And after that, we start to take action. How can we take action? And as I told you before, prevention is always better. So when we are a very big company, we need and regulated with a lot of different regulations and standards. We need to have a prevention behavior, and we need to mitigate those risks. So we work in a long-term roadmap that goes from 2018 until 2027. And you know, this is very important because what I remember that I have seen in the SAMM guide is that a company is always changing. So, and I will show you this in one of the last pictures. A company is always changing. And what does it mean? That you will always need to work in the program. It doesn't mean that you will work in culture in the phase 1, for example, 2018 or 2019, and then you will stop working in culture along the rest of the roadmap. So, like I told you before, we need to be more preventive and mitigate the risk. So we prioritize the initiatives that focusing on the prevention and mitigating the biggest risk or the higher risk. And this is a big picture of the program. But what were our main challenges? The main challenge was update the AppSec strategy according to the organizational context and feedback, because in a digital transformation process, the company is always changing. We need to reprioritize and update initiatives, processes, and technologies, because the standard that I use today is not always working tomorrow. And the third, we need to monitor organizational behavior and strengthen awareness, training, and support. And this is a long way roadmap. So, maybe I can show you one of the evolution of one practice. For example, when we talk about security requirements, at the beginning we started using the application security verification standard and identify the security requirements in a manual way. But then I discovered OWASP cornucopia, and then I think, why do I need to identify security requirements if I can use OWASP cornucopia to identify the security requirements? I related them to the different functional and non-functional requirements of an application. And in Agile, we start to use this related, the security requirements, with the user stories, for example. So we start the program using application security verification standard, and then we focus on streamline the elicitation of security requirements using OWASP cornucopia. So we use the first version of OWASP cornucopia, but then the version update. So we need to start, and the application security verification standard updates too. So we need to train again all the developers and all the security specialists in the use of the new version of application security verification standard and the new version of OWASP cornucopia. This is only an example because we use the same roadmap, for example, in the using of static application security testing, dynamic application security testing, software composition analysis, and all the security practices. And sorry. And what did following this roadmap give us? So, what have we achieved, and how have we achieved it? For example, we start to adopt a prevention behavior, and we start to mitigate the cybersecurity risk. For example, in governance, do you remember that we didn't have cybersecurity governance? After the use of software assurance maturity model, we establish and deploy a cybersecurity governance through the software lifecycle. This is the first wing, for example. And how we achieve it? We deploy an AppSec program formalized and, we have an AppSec program formalized and deployed with metrics. So we have a program that were monitored and using some metrics that maybe give us some indicators of how the company is working. We have an AppSec documentary framework with compliance measurement. We have a policy, standards, guidelines, and we need to update it along the way. We have a cybersecurity courses training, software security specialist distribution, and a security champions program. So with all this work in governance, we start to deploy the program in all the organization. But you remember that the organization is always changing. We start with 200 applications, then we have 900 applications. And something that I didn't told you before is that we need to define a scope. And the first scope was all the applications that goes to, or that were included in this digital transformation process. So we define, we are working with this only in 200 applications. Because if we use the same number of applications, we can monitor how the maturity increase or decrease. And this is a picture of everything that we have achieved along the program and how have we achieved it. Do you want to go deeper in one of them? Do you have one question? For example, you didn't ask me, but in design, we integrate and strengthen security into the design of products and components. And how have we achieved it? We have a robust application risk profile and threat modeling. We didn't use threat modeling, and then we start to use threat modeling based on Stride, and then we had consulting that made us to use I don't remember, Trike as a threat modeling methodology, but Trike it's good, but it's not the better threat modeling methodology to integrate into software development. It's more used to make a threat assessment like an afterthought review, for example. And then we start to use another threat modeling to integrate into the software development process. So every step that we have make let us learn at first, let us to understand what did we really need to do, and which were all good decisions and bad decisions, and how to change or roadmap. Because if you remember, in digital transformation, the most of the companies work with agile, and the companies change every 2 weeks. If you have, for example, a sprint that has the duration of 2 weeks or maybe 1 month, the behavior of the company change every 2 weeks. So we need to monitor the company every 2 weeks. And what does the reality look like after implementing this application security program? As you can see in the images, we increase our maturity, or an AppSec maturity, and in consequences, it increased on the maturity of cybersecurity. We had as a robust cybersecurity program, we have an AppSec program based on software assurance maturity model, with governance, design, implementation, verification, operations, and we have a secure software development lifecycle. We started using abuse case modeling using OWASP cornucopia, with the uses of abuse cases and evil user stories integrated with secure Scrum, for example. We start to use security stories and security requirements based on application security verification standard from web and mobile application security verification standard for mobile. We start to use threat modeling. We start to use architecture security review, and we start to use reusable architectures. And I didn't write here, but we start to use secure software design principles too. In implementation, we start to use secure coding practices based on CERT, for example. We start to use static application security testing, software composition analysis, secret scanning, and digital signing integrated into DevSecOps. We start to, or we continue making functional and non-functional testing. We start to make requirements and abuse case testing based on what we identify in abuse case modeling and threat modeling. The abuse cases that we use in the testing are the abuse cases identified with OWASP cornucopia, for example. And the security requirements that we test or that we verify are the security requirements based on application security verification standard and mobile application security verification standard that we identified in OWASP cornucopia. And we start to use security testing using automated tools, like fuse testing with a dust, for example. And we improve our pen testing. We have a security acceptance based on a risk posture of every application. We have a security installation and verification of the integrity that is based on the verification of the digital signing. And we start to use secure operations and maintenance, vulnerability scannings and resilience exercises, and secure software removal. And maybe I can show you some numbers of this AppSec program. For example, there are some numbers of our application security program. We have 100% of deployment of this AppSec program based on the scope that we defined earlier, 200 applications, with around 300 development teams, 300 development teams. And we have more than 200 applications integrated into the secure software development lifecycle. We have trained more than 2,000 people in secure software development lifecycle. I have trained more than 2,000 people. Primarily in abuse case modeling, threat modeling, how to use security in DevSecOps. We have 96% of applications identifying security requirements, 60% of applications executing threat modeling, and 97% of applications identifying security risk. But what do we finally get? We get prevention and reduction of cybersecurity risk and application events. We get agility, efficiency, and security effectiveness in a digital transformation. We get cost savings from defect resolutions, because if you identify one defect in the requirements phase, for example, it costs 1x. And if you identify this defect in an operations, it can cost almost 100 multiplied by this x. And we have some external and internal compliance. The internal compliance is based on our security policies, guidelines, and standards. And the external compliance is based on the laws that we need to comply. And you know, there is not all beautiful, because we have some learnings too. And what do we learn? We learned that the only constant in the time of the digital transformation is the need to change. And the path isn't necessarily linear. And the truth is that it's never linear. It's always a long and windy road. And you need to adopt your application security program to that road. So sometimes we make good decisions, and other times we make a very bad decisions, but we need to learn, and we need to correct them. What did we learn? Culture. It's always, and it's all related to culture. Culture. Everything requires works in culture. And training, because for example, if we want to execute a threat modeling in the right way, we need to work in culture. If we need to execute the abuse case modeling in the right way, we need to work in culture. And if we use the best tools in the market, we need to work in culture too, because, for example, if we have a static application security testing tool that identify the best vulnerabilities with a lower rate of false positive, if you don't work in culture, you will always have some developers that told you, hey, this is a false positive, and I will not remediate this vulnerability. So we always need to work in culture. An AppSec program, it's a continuous job with continuous changes. When you think it's done, the organization already changed. And this is a good learning, because sometimes you think, hey, I have made all the work that I really need to have, that I really need to make. But when you think, when you think that you have done with the application security program, the organization already changed. And probably you will need to start again working on culture, because if you start to train, if you stop to train and if you stop to deploy the cybersecurity culture, the new teams that are integrated into the digital transformation will not use this AppSec program. So it's always better to work in culture and to keep keep working in the AppSec program. You need to always measure it, always update it, and always go with it. Looking for afar doesn't work. It doesn't work for me. You need to be integrated into the development teams. If I go ahead and only look, the organization not necessarily will use this application security program. And maybe the ugliest truth is that you will never be 100% safe. It doesn't exist. You will always be searching for security, and that ongoing requires ongoing work. As I told you at the beginning, I am convinced that the success of the digital transformation process depends on how you integrate cybersecurity in this digital transformation process, and how do you have the culture that support it. I let you this quote because I like a lot, and it means that the software industry needs more secure products, not necessarily more security products, because I give you an example that some CISO once told me. Cybersecurity is like an onion with a lot of layers. If you have sometimes some cybersecurity products, the most of the times these products will be in the outside layer, not in the inside. And you need to look the cybersecurity in digital products from inside to outside. If you look an onion, you really don't know if inside is good or bad. So you need to take off all of these layers. So I think, and I'm not thinking, the word the word says that we need to start to adopt security by design and security by default. And this is what are we trying to do from all the companies in Lima, in Peru, and in the world. I think that all the people that are working in an AppSec community are trying to work in this, in security by design, security by default. And that's all by me. I hope that you enjoy this presentation and that you understand me. So thank you very much.